And hello, everybody. Welcome to Two Guys Talking Sports. I'm Pat McDonald with Choice 102. He's Tim Burney of the Sports Reports. Tim, we're back after a week off, and a good week to be back as we're going to talk to Coach Jason Miller of the Waverly Wolverines before they take on Chenango Forks, and always a fun showdown between Forks and Waverly.
Yeah, it should be a fun game. It's funny because Jason will touch on it. It doesn't mean anything this year, which is really odd. It's been, I think, since 2014 or 15 when they won the Class B title that they haven't been in the same classification. So, just different.
Let's start with going over last week's stuff. We'll start with Waverly. I was on the road. I was driving on the Massachusetts Turnpike. Got to listen to our sister station WEBO. Darren Dodge, Adam Cole on the call. Waverly a 14-7 winner over Owego. That was for a low-scoring affair, it was kind of a wild one.
Yeah, it's funny because coming into the season, I would have said Owego, maybe wins 4 or 5 games, and here we are. They're sitting at 5-3, and they've got 3 losses to 3 teams that are ranked in the top 10 in the state, between Forks being number 1 in C, Waverly being number 4 in B, and Maine Endwell being number 10 in B. And they played all 4 of those or 3 of those teams tough. I think the total number they've lost by 10 points in those 3 games combined. So, Pat and Taylor does such a good job, and that was such a physical game. They had their chances in that game as well. Penalties played a big part in it. They're probably one of their best drives of the day got burdened down by penalties. So, Owego's dangerous in the playoffs regardless of who they play.
Yeah, I told Darren Dodge, our WBO play-by-play guy, before last week that they'd have to hold Waverly to 14 and have a chance to win. They did that, just couldn't muster the offense. But yeah, if they have that defense, they can play with anybody.
Yeah, and Waverly showed. Waverly's a pretty good defensive squad too. So, and to be honest with you, there's another team. If you would ask me before the season with the schedule they had, what their record was, I would have said 7-3 at best, and might have picked 6-4 with, probably 2 games against Maine Endwell, and then throw in Troy and Chenango Forks, and here they are sitting 7-0.
Let's stick in the Valley. The Athens Wildcats get a win. They move up to number 2 seed. Right now in District 4 Quad A, but that is going to change this week as Jersey Shore will get a win over a 5A school in Central Mountain. Athens playing the single A Sarah Redskins. But talk about, obviously, Athens, a dominant performance over Muncie, 41-14. Big news there, though. They're going to be missing their starting quarterback the next couple weeks after a ejection.
Yeah, after the game, Sean Bradley said it's a bittersweet night. They get a big, impressive win over Muncie, but they lose their quarterback and outside linebacker, and really costly.
Big for young Shea Davidson, the freshman quarterback stepping in, is, you get a week under your belt here against rival Sayre, but a week to prepare before you get thrown to the fire as a starting quarterback against Jersey Shore, most likely on the road down there.
Yeah, I think they would have had their hands full with Connor Davidson at quarterback. And, Shea's looked pretty good. He's not the running threat, but he throws a nice ball. They're going to have their hands full regardless of who's quarterback in that game.
Yeah, so we'll see how the Wildcats do. But it looks like they're going to finish out a year. Obviously miracles do happen, I guess, but 9-1, so a good campaign regardless. Other scores in the NTL. Tunkhannock, a close 34-27 win over Towanda. Montgomery, an impressive victory, 42-14 over South Williamsport. I think I picked South in the paper even. Montgomery, you never know with them, but it seems like they're legit this year.
Yeah, they are for real. I picked South as well. And, because Montgomery had won all the games you'd expected them to win, but, they didn't really have a signature win, but I think they do now.
Other games, Hughesville 28-6 over Wyalusing. Troy puts up 70 on Central Mountain. Central Mountain 0-9, and that's who Jersey Shore, I believe, plays this week.
Mason Smith, 8 touchdowns in that game, 5 rushing and 3 passing. Pretty impressive night.
Absolutely. I figured he's such a good athlete. I haven't seen them since they played Athens. Looking forward to seeing him in the playoffs to see, how much that offense has progressed with him moving from running back to quarterback. And that District 4 AA field is so great. It's going to be fun to watch with, Right now Southern's the top seed, Warrior Run 2, Troy 3, Bloom 4. And those are 4 really good squads.
Yeah, don't sleep on Warrior Run when Troy plays them. That could be a tough game for them.
So other games last week, looking like we had Tioga with a 24-8 win over Trumansburg. That was closer than I thought, I guess.
Yeah, the funny thing about that was Trumansburg had hit a couple of long passes, one right before a touchdown run, another one where Tioga got a stop. Tioga kind of dominated the game up front on both sides of the football, but Trumansburg did keep the game close enough, and Tioga sat on the ball at like the 5-yard line for the last minute and a half, took 3 knees instead of punching it at the end of the game. Kind of a class move from Aiello.
New York scores from last week. Spencer Burnett and Cantor, 48-19 over Newark Valley. Any surprise there for you?
No, Newark Valley's they beat the teams that they should beat, but they've struggled against the good teams. They're just not deep enough or big enough to play with the Tiogas and the Specs. Specs pretty solid. They got 3 dangerous athletes. But they're another team. They need a signature win here. They did beat Delhi. That's a really big win for them. But they turned around and lost to Trumansburg convincingly. So we'll see what they've got come postseason. If they make it, that's the problem. Right now they're sitting in the 3 spot, and they need Trumansburg to lose.
Other games, Chenango Forks, 43-14 winner over Whitney Point. Elmira, 34-8 win over Corning. I'm not sure how often that happens up there.
No, well, you know what? Elmira's kind of had their number a little bit, but usually they're much closer games. I think Elmira beat them in the section finals a couple years ago. And they beat them last year, too, because Corning went out east and won to get into the state semis. So, usually they're just close games. They're not beating them. They're not thumping them by 26,
Vestal 14-12 over Horseheads. That's, a low-scoring affair for those two.
I guess Horseheads is pretty banged up. They got Bryce Thomas back, but they've lost 3 or 4 other starters. And Vestal got thumped by Owego. They've been beat around a little bit this year after starting out, with I think 2-0, and that one surprised me quite a bit.
So that's pretty much last week's action here on both sides of the border. Before we throw it to our interview with Waverly coach Jason Miller, let's hear from our friends at UHS Sports Medicine.
UHS Sports Medicine is your team's partner, keeping you healthy both on and off the field. Learn more at nyuhs.org.
And joining us now here on Two Guys Talking Sports is Waverly head coach Jason Miller. How are we doing tonight, Coach?
Great, fellas. Thank you for having me once again.
Absolutely.
So, Coach, you've been doing this a long time, and I've been with you since the beginning, basically covering you. Some of your biggest wins ever have been against this Chenango Forks program, and a couple of your, most memorable losses have been too. Your thoughts on the rivalry and some of the memories of this series.
Well, I think over the last, really back to 2008, between 2008 and 2025, you're correct in saying that this developed into a really good rivalry. It's been physical, always a physical game. Usually there's a lot more on the line than what there is for this game. But I don't think it takes away any significance as far as what the kids think it's going to be. So, and what it should be. So, it's a big game. And the reality is that, it's for pride and program status and all that. Certainly, they have an advantage in that regard, having won 7 state titles. So, we're just trying to recover from last week and really the last 4 weeks of physical play, and we're ready. As we sit here on Thursday night, we're ready to go tomorrow.
Well, you kind of touched on it. You always talk about winning your division games, getting that home playoff game. You've already clinched all that. Do you see any, problems getting the kids ready to play this week?
No, not at all. I think a lot of the kids that are on this team have been in those contests for the last 3 years. Going back to people like Matthias and Troy, Ben, going back to their freshman and even 8th grade year. 4 years ago. They've all been in this game before and on the line as sectional final game. So they understand the significance of it, and we've prepared this week as we normally do, and just excited to get the work week over and get ready to play the game.
We talked about earlier this season when we talked to you about your schedule. How much do you think these tough games are just helping you prepare when you get to playoffs in a couple weeks?
Well, the great thing about playing 4-quarter games, which over the course of the last 3 or 4 years we really haven't had a lot of them. I really believe it makes you better. You're always going to discover things that you need to work on. The Class B level, a lot of great coaches, physical play every week. We've played up, against a very good UE team. They demonstrate that there's a weakness somewhere, right? And so every week we go back to work and we try to fix those issues that we had perhaps in the game based on scheme, or maybe it was a technique that we weren't really good at. And every week there's something different. So it's been a really good experience to focus on something to improve at every single week. And I think that focus is showing up on Friday or Saturday, and we hope that continues this week.
You talked about rivalries with Chenango Forks. I was on the road last weekend, so I was listening to our sister station WBO's broadcast of your game against Owego. Talk about that kind of budding rivalry, because it's always been there, but you guys have gone long stretches without playing now. But now both in Class B. How cool is that? It seemed like it was packed there Saturday.
Yeah, it was their homecoming. Saturday afternoon, 1:00 game. It was very much like a college game atmosphere. A little bit of a warm day. It was just a really physical, hard-hitting game. Both teams, I thought, ran the ball very well. Both teams played great defense, and you felt like every single yard you gained, you had to really earn. So it just came down to the final possessions once again. I think the last 4 games we've been in have come in down to really a last possession game that could determine the outcome. So it was a lot of fun. It's always great to come out on the winning side of those games. That game had very significant meaning as we secured the first seed for playoffs. And also one of our goals always is to win whatever division we're in that given year. So we've accomplished some team goals heading into week 8.
Coach, I noticed last week you've had 3 or 4 real physical games right in a row. I noticed Brance Van Dyke in a knee brace. How's your health otherwise?
We've had a kind of unfortunate series of injuries. Brance was the first one, and that goes back really to week 1. He tried to tough it out week 2. He had a torn ACL. He got surgery already. Matt Trudeau tore his MCL, and he's was getting more and more reps up to 3 weeks ago when he did that. Tristan Campbell is another backup lineman that tore his ACL. And we've had a series of injuries. Thankfully, they haven't been the beginners, but those guys are really integral part of our team, and especially in practice and giving us a look, and always practice very hard. And Matt's had his surgery already. Tristan's going to put off his surgery until he gets through bowling season. He's already walking much better, but there's no ACL. So other than that, we're very fortunate to have most of our guys healthy. We're banged up on Monday's a sore day, especially this week, a Saturday game. And, we get into weight room Mondays and try to get some of that out in condition. And then Tuesday we get back to work.
You mentioned how tough a defensive battle the Owego game was. Looking at Forks, they've only given up 66 points in 7 games, so 9.5 points a game.
Yeah.
What kind of problems do they present defensively for you?
Well, Forks is never, ever, ever out of position. They don't get baited in by motion. They don't get baited in by misdirection. They are just so sound on defense. They've got 3 coaches that have seriously, this is not hyperbole. They have over 100 years of experience in coaching, just with 3 guys on their staff, and the other staff members are also very good. So, they're very good at preparing and taking away what you do. And they just are very physical up front. Their backers flow to the ball, and you're not going to beat them deep. So it's, you have to be very careful and pick your opportune moments if you want to take a shot. It's tough to do anything against them. So,
talk about your offense. Obviously, you've always wanted to run the ball. You still want to run the ball. That's like your main priority. But like a couple weeks ago against Maine Endwell, Ben throws a couple picks early. Talk about his ability to persevere and just keep that confidence going. And I was listening on the radio to the Owego game, and it seemed like he was, made some nice throws, just a little off with the receivers. But talk about the passing game, and where's that at?
Yeah, the two, he threw some really nice deep balls Saturday. Kind of a good throwing day, nice and warm, and the ball cut through the air pretty good. One of those throws went off the hands of receivers behind a defender. The other throw, Dalton did not high point it, and the kid got his hand on it. But the one play that really sticks out is Dalton's throw. He threw the Dalton across the middle. It ended up being a big play, and then the ball to Chase, and then was very accurate in the short game. Ronan Alt had some really significant catches there in that last drive. And Hogan did too. So kind of spread the ball around once again and take him to give him the one throw was kind of forced. He went the wrong way. I wish I'd helped him out with that read a little bit, but it was a great ball. It just safety was kind of leaned that way, and he misunderstood where I wanted to go with it, and I probably should have yelled it out.
He seems to have a short memory, though. Like I talked about the ME game where he threw a couple picks early, and he came back in that second half.
Yeah,
was maybe his best half of the year.
And again, I think it's a lot of picks are blamed on quarterbacks. Some are rightfully deserved. The other part of that is one of those picks was a missed signal. The receiver ran the wrong route. Mm-hmm. That's really on him. And especially as quick as we get the ball out and attempt to get it out, if there's a wrong route, it's probably going to end up disastrous. So, and then the other one, same thing, kind of looked, it didn't find the free safety and kind of threw it down the middle, and the free safety made a great play on it. So that happens, but you're right. I mean, he has a very short memory. Doesn't get upset. He's not afforded that opportunity, right? He has to turn around and play defense at middle linebacker, and so he's done a great job of just, whatever mistakes are made on offense, going back to work on defense, and it's a unique situation. You don't see it very often. Yeah. I know we've discussed this before, but he's had an incredible year defensively. He's just been outstanding.
Chenango Forks opened the season with a 7-6 win over Owego, but were without quarterback Sam Paskey. The next week, they really put it on Maine Endwell.
Yeah.
Plus they've got, the running back's a stud too. His name escapes me right now, but your thoughts on them offensively? Well,
the name is Bryson Fry, and he's only a sophomore, and was a starter for them last year on defensive corner, and he's just locked down. I mean, he's got tremendous speed. He's got a good size. Their other running back is the guy that we feared last year, and because of the amount of his speed, Tate Bender. They just have a tremendous amount of speed, and they find very unique ways to distribute the ball to both of them. And of course, what we failed to mention is Paskey is a very tough runner and elusive when he gets into space, does a great job reading the option. So they have a lot of weapons. And the thing that concerns me is the speed, because they really kind of made Maine Endwell look slow when they got to the second level. Both of them were just gone. And especially, I think Fry had 5 touchdowns in that game.
Talk about next man up mentality. Obviously, you're going to be without your starting running back this week. So who's going to fill that role? And you're obviously looking for other guys to step up.
Yeah, in multiple ways, we like to, as best we can, play kids that one way, if best we can. Bryce LaForest has been starting for us at outside linebacker. Really has not had an opportunity to play tailback. I think he's a good tailback. He's shifty. His eyes are always up. He sees defenders, so he'll get a chance at tailback. He's he's longed for it all year, and now he gets his chance, and Rylan Larson is behind him, so he moves into number 2. He'll get some carries. Defensively, we have 2 new starters, so we'll have a freshman and a junior started and an outside linebacker. But it's without a whole lot of thought process. I mean, that's we can't discuss and constantly preach next man up when then it happens and we don't give these kids an opportunity.
I mean, the good news is, like we talked off air, is there's no, this week doesn't matter. It's not a division game, right? So
right.
you can kind of play with some things this week.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, there's 0 post-season implications in this, so it makes it really unique. First time in a long time that the Forks game is just kind of has no other meaning than trying to win or lose. And it's going to be important for us, especially early in the game, as we adjust to the speed, our new players, and try to adjust to whatever front they're going to play. Last year they played in throughout the entire season an even front. They show up at our game in an odd front. And our kids did a really good job adapting and adjusting to that. But as we prepare this year, it's the same thing. We're not really sure what kind of front they're going to come in. And that's going to take some time to figure that out.
Jason, 10, 15 years ago, I remember talking, we'd talk, and you said, I think it was after 2011, you won a section title. You got back to the championship game in 12. You talked about how you needed to keep this rolling. You wanted to get your program to the same level that Chenango Forks and Maine Enroll's at. Well, now you've won, I think, 5 section titles. You got a state title under your belt. You're habitually in that championship game. You feel like you're getting there, if you're there yet, or your thoughts on that?
I feel like I've run out of time. I'm never going to win 7 state titles. I'm running out of time very quickly, so we'll never get to where those programs are. But look, the reality is that we have developed a program in a culture where kids expect to win. They understand the demands of them in the off season. They understand the demands in the in season. And, every time we step on the field, we expect to compete. We don't talk about winning. We never, ever talk about winning. We never talk about losing. It's just, can you give your best effort and compete for 48 minutes? And with that said, that's what our kids do. I think this group is a tremendously they're just flat out tough kids. There's a lot of wrestlers. There's guys that do multiple sports. This year we have a lot of kids that have never played football. They're part of this program as much as anybody else, even though they haven't been on the field very much. But that's resonating throughout the school hallways, and that's all we're trying to do. I think the kids are proud of their accomplishments. I think proud of the program. Certainly, community is very supportive. So, as far as a game day, if you didn't look at records, you didn't look at past history, we feel like we have. The program that we want to develop, it's you're never satisfied, but when we walk out, we know that we've put in the effort to prepare, and hopefully our kids feel the same way.
My last question: I know coaches don't like to look ahead too much. Yeah. When you look at these Section 4 Class B playoffs, you've played tough games with those other 3 teams, Norwich, Owego, and Maine Endwell, but they all kind of provide different challenges, right?
Really
so
do.
What are you thinking when you go into the playoffs? Are you watching the other 3 teams kind of jostle for position there and wondering who you're going to face in the semis? And how do the kids, when they know the team pretty well, I mean, that's got to be helpful.
This weekend's a very important weekend. Norwich and Maine Endwell play tomorrow night. That will determine kind of a multitude of different scenarios. If Norwich wins, that means I believe that Owego becomes the 4th seed, and that's who we'd play. If Maine Endwell wins, then Norwich is the 4th seed. It's been a long time since we played. It seems like a long time since we played Norwich. We'll have all the games filmed, and again, it does come back to that. Who do we need to focus on now? There is no November 18th if you don't get through November 11th, and so it really is kind of it's great to be able to play a team. I used to say, well, I just want to play them one time and they don't know what you're going to do. But I'm learning very quickly. If you play them one time, you don't know what they're going to do either. So it's hard to prepare, and I'd much rather prepare for what they do. I think the physical type of games, the long games that we've played in this year, I can't imagine that anybody has held anything back. There's no saving anything. So, in those situations, you kind of show your cards, they kind of show their cards, and but it does give you something to go on the next time. So that helps you. I would think it's going to help us prepare for that next challenge whenever it comes.
All right, that is Waverly head coach Jason Miller. Coach, thanks for stopping by Two Guys Talking Sports. Good luck against Chenango Forks and the rest of the way.
Thanks, Pat, and I appreciate what you guys do.
Thanks, Coach. Good luck.
Thank you.
And we want to thank Waverly head coach Jason Miller for joining us here on Two Guys Talking Sports. Tim, let's go through this week's action. We'll start in the NTL rivalry week here in the Northern Tier League, although I don't know how many close games we're going to end up with. The Rusty Rail game, Athens-Sayre over at the Lockhart Street Bowl Friday night. Obviously, Shea Davidson, young freshman starting at quarterback for Athens, but still the heavy favorites over a depleted Redskins squad that is winless on the year.
Yeah, I'll give those 15 or 16 Sayre kids that are still in uniform and healthy a lot of credit for persevering. That said, I think Athens names the score this week, and but like I said, give them credit for still going right now.
Absolutely, I heard I was told the Towanda game they had about 11 kids when they finished the game healthy, so they're really patching it together, and yeah, they fought through a tough season, so yeah, credit to them. Same kind of thing at Miller A. Moyer Field this Friday night. Troy at Canton. Canton going through a similar season to Sayre, although they do have a couple wins under their belt. But yeah, Troy, I think they can name their score as well.
Exactly.
Towanda at Wyalusing, probably the closest of those three local NTL rivalries, right? I think I picked Wyalusing in the paper in the bronze helmet game, but Towanda's been playing better and getting a little more healthy.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Towanda seems to be piecing things together. They found some things that work. They played Tunkhannock pretty tough last week. Fell behind early and came back and made it a closer game. I think they got to. I think I'm gonna pick the Black Knights this week to pull a minor upset.
Other NTL games: CV at Montgomery, Hughesville at Muncie, Northwest at South, and then Wellsboro, North Penn, Mansfield. So rivalry week throughout the Northern Tier League there. Before we go into the Section 4 football action, let's thank our friends at UHS Sports Medicine.
UHS Sports Medicine is your team's partner, keeping you healthy both on and off the field. Learn more at nyuhs.org.
All right, Tim, let's talk about the big one, Waverly, Chenango Forks. Waverly without their top running back, Cooper Robinson, out after an ejection last week, so we're going to have to find a way to run the ball. Bryce LaForest, that you heard from Coach Miller, will be kind of the next man up.
Well, I was told today that they reduced it to a half a game, so he might be back in the third quarter. But that said, like I said in the first segment, I've short sold this Waverly team all season, and here they are sitting 7-0. But I also said when the season started, I thought Chenango Forks can be the best team in Section 4, and I don't think they've done anything to make me change my opinion. I think they're very athletic, they're very big and physical up front. So is Waverly. I think Waverly hangs with them. I just think I think Waverly's going to have a trouble putting the ball in the end zone. So I like Forks in this game. Probably 24-7.
Yeah, I picked Forks in the newspaper picks this week, and I would think I'd be a similar score, although I think we were both wrong last time we picked against Waverly way back in week 00. So hopefully, the Wolverines maybe tell us to shut up and shock the world this Friday night.
It's gonna be a fun game.
Absolutely, I'll be on the call on Choice 102. 7:00 start tomorrow night over at Memorial Stadium, Friday night, I should say. Let's talk some other games. Who's Tioga got this week?
They play Green Oxford. I don't think that's going to be, it shouldn't be a game. Green Oxford, first year back into 11-man football. They've struggled, giving up 40-some points a game. I think they're winless, although all their results are not online. I think Tioga rolls in that one.
Up in the Elmira area, Elmira hosting Rome Free Academy. Not sure anything about Rome Free Academy there. So Elmira bringing in out of the area team for a game here this week. Corning hosting Ithaca. So the Hawks should get back on track, I would assume. And then Horseheads hosting Binghamton. So I'm not sure about Rome, but for the other two games, seems like good weeks to maybe get healthy and get a win for Corning and Horseheads.
And then we have Owego facing Johnson City. Not a big game for them, but they're kind of at the mercy of the Maine Dunwell Norwich game as to where they get seeded. But they definitely want to win that game, and they should. Johnson City's down. Owego's been playing pretty well.
Yeah, I'm sure Owego would love to see Maine Dunwell win that game against Norwich, so they can avoid being the 4 seed. But as someone who didn't get to see Waverly Owego the first time, I wouldn't mind seeing that game. But that's gonna be a fun. I don't care how they shake out. I think it's gonna be a fun Section 4 Class B playoffs there.
I think if Maine Dunwell wins, they host Owego. Waverly gets Norwich. Yep. I think there's a little bit of separation between those first 3 teams. So I think if Maine Dunwell wins, I think Waverly's got a little easier path than Maine Dunwell or Owego have to play each other.
Yeah, Waverly got to see the Norwich, the young quarterback there, and we haven't seen him in a while, so we'll see how much he's progressed. But yeah, it should be a fun Section 4 playoffs, and I think, like we talked earlier, the District 4 AA playoffs should be fun to watch as well. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Two Guys Talking Sports. For Tim Burney, I'm Pat McDonald. We'll talk to you next week.